All right, chemistry students, here are your corrections for section review 6.6 on page 163 in your textbook. 43 says, name these compounds. So you might choose to use your flow chart that you made. All right. So our first question, remember, is this compound ionic or molecular? And hopefully you know it's ionic because you see CO3, which is a polyatomic ion you have memorized. So it's an ionic compound. So remember to name it. My next question then is my metal in a tall column or a short column? Calcium's in a tall column, so I will only have to name this once. So I'm just going to combine the name of my cation and my anion. So this is calcium ion and carbonate. So its name is calcium carbonate. Next we have KMnO4. So again, our first question is whether this is ionic or molecular. MnO4 is a polyatomic ion you have memorized, so that's ionic. Next, then I wonder about my K. Is that in a tall column or short? It's in a tall column, so I only have to name this once. I'm going to combine the name of my cation and my anion. My cation is potassium ion, so it's just going to be potassium. And MnO4 is one you have memorized. It's permanganate. Next we have PbCrO4. Again, CrO4 is chromate. It's a polyatomic ion you have memorized, so it's an ionic compound. Pb then, is that in a tall column or short column? It looks like it's in a tall column, but it's underneath that heavy stair step line, which means that we need to check our helper sheet. Pb is on our helper sheet. It does have more than one possible charge. So I need to figure out what its charge is. CrO4 that I have memorized has a charge of -2. There's only one of them, so that means my total negative charge is -2, which means lead charge has to be a +2. Remember, I'm going to name this twice because it's on my helper sheet. So with the stock system, this is lead, Roman numeral 2, chromate. I look at my helper sheet, plum. And +2 is the lower charged lead, so it's going to get us ending chromate. So those are the two names for that one that you should have on your homework: lead 2 chromate and plumbus chromate. Next we have CaHPO4. Again, calcium's a metal, so this is an ionic compound. Calcium's in a tall column of my periodic table, so I only have to name it once. So calcium is calcium ion, so there's my calcium. HPO4, that's not one I have memorized, so I'm going to look at my helper sheet, and I'm going to find HPO4, and I see that its name is hydrogen phosphate, so this is calcium hydrogen phosphate. Letter E, we have SnCr2O7. Sn is a metal, so this is an ionic compound. Is Sn in a tall column or short column? Again, it looks like it's in a tall column, but it's underneath that heavy stair step line, which means I need to look at my helper sheet. Sn is tin. Tin is on my helper sheet, and it has more than one possible charge. That means I'm going to name this twice, and to name it, I have to figure out the charge on this tin. So Cr2O7 is not a polyatomic ion I have memorized. It's on my helper sheet. It has a charge of -2. There's only one of them, so my total negative charge is -2. So tin has a charge of +2. So with the stock system with the Roman numerals, this is tin 2 dichromate. That's the name of the polyatomic ion on my helper sheet. Tin is Stan, and the two possible charges on tin on my helper sheet are +2, +4. So this is the lower one, so this is Stan us dichromate. My last one here, Mg3P2. Magnesium's a metal, phosphorus is a non-metal, so this is an ionic compound. Magnesium is in a tall column, so I only have to name this once. So magnesium as an ion is magnesium ion. And P, remember, that's a monatomic ion, so I take my element name, which is phosphorus. It loses its ending and gets an "ide." So this is phosphide. Magnesium phosphide. So next, number 44, which says write formulas for these compounds. Again, you might use your flow chart to help you with this. So we have tin 2-hydroxide. So again, the question is if this is ionic or molecular. Hydroxide is a polyatomic ion you have memorized, so that means it's an ionic compound. So I'm going to do symbols, charges, crisscross, lowest whole number ratio. Symbol for tin is Sn. Remember, the +2 is telling me the charge on tin. Hydroxide is OH that I have memorized. I crisscross down. I'm going to need parentheses. It's SnOH2. Barium fluoride. Barium's a metal. Fluoride's a nonmetal. This is an ionic compound. I'm going to do symbols, charges, crisscross, lowest whole number ratio. Barium symbol is Ba. It's in group 2A, so it has a charge of +2. Fluoride is F. It's in group 7A, so it has a charge of -1. I crisscross down and I get BaF2, which is the lowest whole number ratio. Letter C, tetraiodine monoxide. I look up iodine, it's a nonmetal. I look up oxide, it's a nonmetal, so this is a molecular compound. Remember to write the formulas for molecular compounds. My prefixes become subscripts. I write the elements in the order they're given, so iodine is I. Tetra means it's a subscript of 4. Oxide is O. Monoxide means it's a subscript of 9. So I4, O9 for that one. Letter D, iron 3 oxalate. Again, iron, metal, and a polyatomic ion. So I'm going to do symbols, charges, crisscross, lowest whole number ratio. My symbol for iron is Fe. Its charge is +3 because that's what the Roman numeral is telling me. Oxalate is not a polyatomic ion I have memorized. It is C2O4 with a charge of -2. I crisscross down. I'm going to need parentheses and a 3, and 2 to 3 is my lowest whole number ratio. Letter E, calcium sulfide. Question is whether this is ionic or molecular. Calcium's a metal, sulfide's a nonmetal, so this is an ionic compound. So again, I'm going to do symbols, charges, crisscross, lowest whole number ratio. Calcium is in group 2A, so it has a charge of +2. Sulfide is in group 6A. It has a charge of then -2 because it's going to gain 2 electrons. I'd crisscross down 2's, but 2 to 2 would reduce to 1 to 1. So my formula is just CAS. Lastly, aluminum hydrogen carbonate. Again, my question is whether this is ionic or molecular. Hydrogen carbonate is one of the 10 polyatomic ions you have memorized, so you know this is an ionic compound. So again, I'm going to do symbols, charges, crisscross, lowest whole number ratio. My symbol for aluminum is Al. It's in group 3A, so it has a charge of +3. Hydrogen carbonate that you have memorized is HCO3 with a charge of -1. I crisscross down. I'm going to need parentheses and a 3. I hope this helps. Have a great day.